What up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Off the Record, which you know about because you're regular listeners of the Smoking Tire Podcast, and Off the Record is a regular sponsor. They help you get out of terribly unfair, stupid speeding fines. They stink. Nobody likes them. Nobody likes them. You know they're not keeping people safe. They're just raising money for insurance companies and courts and cops, things like that. If you get pulled over, don't plead guilty. Pleading guilty is for suckers. Instead, call Off the Record. OTR, baby. Off the Record will pair you up with a qualified attorney in the jurisdiction in which you got pulled over. And for a very reasonable price, they'll fight that ticket on your behalf, get those points off your record. And if they don't, you don't pay. Money back guarantee. They have an unbelievable success rate, like over 95%. They cover almost every jurisdiction in the country. Not every, but almost. And they can fight everything from very small tickets to very, very big tickets. All you got to do is go to offtherecord.com/TST or download the Off the Record app and use code TST10. That will get you 10% off all legal services booked through Off the Record. On the web, offtherecord.com/TST or code TST10 on the Off the Record app. Then if you get a ticket, you just make that account ahead of time so you're ready to go. You're booked up. And then if you get a ticket, snap a photo of it, scan the ticket, send it to Off the Record. They will deal with the rest. Very, very easy. Offtherecord.com/TST. Code TST10 on the app. Get you 10% off those legal services booked through Off the Record. It's golden. Don't plead guilty. Go to Off the Record instead. Folks, today's episode, I'm down at BBI Autosport in Huntington Beach, California. It's as I do. When my Boxster Spider needs an oil change, I go down to BBI. They do the oil change, and then I sit down with my old friend Betim Berisha, the owner of BBI, talk about Porsches, talk about sports cars, talk about all kind of things. We're talking about the Hoonipigasus finally running up Pikes Peak. We're talking about how Betim drove my Spider and then went out and decided that what he needed was the budget version of that. So he put a big 911 motor in a Cayman, and it rips for like no money. Pretty cool. We're talking about lots of 992 stuff, 911 ST, Spider RS. We're talking about what the aftermarket looks like with the 992 generation of cars compared to previous generations, and all kinds of good stuff with Betim Berisha of BBI Autosport on this episode of the Smoking Tire Podcast. Here he is in your lobby again.
Here we are.
That's good coffee. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you to Common Room Roasters, my boys.
Thank you for having me, changing my oil.
Yeah, of course.
We do actually see each other when I'm not getting oil changes.
Yeah.
It's just not at this is a good time to kill.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
Look, you got an hour and a half to kill.
Maybe more, because it's hard to set the oil level in my car.
It's actually easy to change your oil.
Yeah.
It's hard to set it. So it's like you got to hold your ear. You got to look at it funny, and then you make sure it warms up in a specific manner all the way up, shut it off, and then do it again, and then you check.
Do electronic dipsticks make your life difficult?
Oh, they're horrible. They absolutely.
Why do you think they have gone to the electronic dipstick?
Less hardware.
Less hardware.
Yeah. So if you had a physical dipstick in that car, now you have to have a physical dipstick, and then a lot of these cars are dry sump, right? So then it has to come out of the oil tank somewhere. And then how are you going to get that thing back around and then a convenient spot to...
Sure, okay. So I guess it does, because the sensor is probably very small and very light, right?
It's tiny, yeah.
Huh, well that's...
And they put in the firmware, run 3 wires to it and call it a day.
And I guess it's probably from like a people who actually buy Porsche's perspective, I think in 2024 or 2023, asking someone who spent $200,000 on their car to check the oil is probably too much to ask.
Yeah.
It's amazing that it is, but it is.
Yeah, I never thought about that like that, but
right, versus a light that comes on that goes, add 1 quart.
That's what you want, I guess. You're like, and you just open the thing and you put the
And
cord.
look, I'm guilty because like when last time I was down here and we did a show,
Right.
you know, it was a bitch to set the level, and it took a long time.
A couple of days. Then you have to drive the car, and then you parked it up at your place,
Right.
and then called me like, hey.
At a certain point, we gave up.
Yeah,
like we
I don't-
gave up, and I went home, and you said, "Here's some extra oil." The mic has come off. Was it just the fuzzy?
Just the fuzzy.
Oh, leave the fuzzy. It's
Okay.
not windy in here. You'll be fine.
Cool.
So the fucking
Yeah,
fuzzy.
we literally just gave up. I was like,
And I did end up adding that quart over time, but to go back to me being guilty of the problem, 2,000 miles later, I had been driving the car, and the light came on. It said you're 3/4 of a quart low. Add. So I did, and that maybe would have saved me some problems because I did not check the oil.
right. No, I mean, honestly, if I'm spending $200,000 on a car, I don't want to check the oil. I want something to tell me, hey, do this. I want to just enjoy it and focus on driving it. Like
Especially if it's a new car.
Right, like my Mustang or the Cayman or whatever, sure. I actually get a kick out of going to the gas station, filling it up. While it's filling up, I'm like, oh, let me just check the oil and do that. So
With my old cars, I do check the oil.
Yeah.
Because it's an old car. It's what you do with an old car, you know. But with this car, it's the first car I've had that's really actually burned any oil.
Right.
You know, it's supposed to, but
Yeah.
it did burn 3/4 of a quart over 2,000 miles.
Which, if you look in the book, and we looked this up, you're kind of every oil change. It's not unacceptable for an OEM car to burn a quart to a quart and a half. Mm-hmm. In some instances, I think in the GT2, if you're driving it hard, they want you to make sure that it could be half a quart per gas tank when you're driving
gas
when you're
tank?
driving them hard.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so, and that's OEM.
That's like a lot.
And when we build our engines, we run them, the clearances quite a bit different. So you're going to get a puff of smoke on startup.
Yeah.
You're going to get a more oil consumption.
I get the puff of smoke on startup,
Yeah.
but a lot of GT cars, even stock cars, do that,
Right.
and it's totally normal.
Of course.
My old man, when he had his Cayenne Turbo, would be bitching to me that the car was burning oil.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, how much oil is it burning? And he said it's like a quart every 2,000. I go, that's totally normal.
That's normal.
It's totally normal for a Cayenne
Which
Turbo.
you don't think that, but it is. It's normal.
Yeah, but imagine, you know, we're sports car people, so we're used to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a Cayenne person isn't. That's a person who wants a fast, normal car.
Yeah.
They don't want a sports car that happens to be tall and has 4 doors. You know.
no, yeah.
So it's like a totally different mindset.
But when you have a fast 4-door tall car,
Right.
it comes with some of those
Right.
nuances.
Since I was last year, I let you drive my car.
Yeah.
You had a quick go. You enjoyed it.
I did.
And you then went out and bought a cheap Cayman and put a big bore motor in it.
It ruined me. I mean, look, honestly, I had the GT3, the 992 GT3, sold that 8 or 9 months ago, which was such an awesome car to drive. It's just a very focused car to drive. So
Sure.
after driving your car, which thank you for letting me drive that thing, I went out and bought an 07S that we built a long time ago for one of my clients, and it was just sitting in his garage. And I had a big 911 engine, you know, from a same vintage, like a 08 Carrera S, which is an X51 3.8, has a little bit bigger cam, some CNC ported heads, and it had the aluminum big intake. And we were going to put that in like a little lightweight 996 at one point. I was like, no, put it in there. And then we did a short gearbox, limited slip, and then long tube headers and a GT3 muffler, which is way too freaking loud right now. I gotta change that.
I heard when you rolled up. It's pretty loud.
I gotta change that. But it's like one of my favorite cars to drive right now.
Well, that's the modern version of old school hot rodding.
Right.
Take the engine from the big car, put it in the little car.
Right. Yeah.
It's a pretty straightforward formula.
I just need to sawzall the roof off now.
Spiders.
I know.
You could go full Grimes. You could commit and go and turn it into a spider
Right.
with like a Bam Margera style. If you get someone famous enough to use the Sawzall,
Yeah.
it adds provenance.
Hey, there we go.
Because remember, wasn't it wasn't it Billy Idol that cut the roof in Bam Margera's car?
Yeah.
So
Sliced
now,
that roof right up.
now it's not the fucked up Gallardo. Now it's the Gallardo that Billy Idol cut the
What
roof
if I
in.
have you cut the roof off?
I'm not famous enough.
You're not there
you
yet?
need Billy. You need actual Billy.
I need actually Billy.
Yeah, I think I don't know what he's doing right now, but I bet you for a G, he got a whole.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna buy you lunch. Give you the G.
You got some customers that are famous enough that they would happily take a Sawzall to your roof.
I got the Sawzall and safety glasses. Let's do it.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Actually, what I'm gonna do is keep working on the car and then sell it. I don't know what's next, but
is that car early came in with a 911 motor? Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of thing that good consumer advice? Should people be seeking out that type of build?
It is a lot of in the Porsche world, it's a lot of bang for the buck.
Yeah,
you can buy a low mile early Cayman. I was looking it up on Bring a Trailer between 28 and 35 grand, right? And if you can find a wrecker engine for $7 grand, but I do suggest you go through it, and that's where the price kind of comes up. But I put the updated intermediate shaft in it, polished and balanced the crank, bearings, all the good stuff. But I didn't put like big pistons in it. I didn't put cams or anything like that, no studs. I just wanted to increase the reliability because 3.8 makes good power. The thing, what's nice, it's like the baby version of your car, because you can be in any gear, especially with the short gearbox. Like you could be in 3,000 RPMs and just half throttle, and it moves.
Yeah. So what is yours making, like high threes power?
Or
fours?
No, to the wheels it's making 356. I think.
Oh, that's a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bunch to the wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, that was as high as we got it, and then but that's on 100 octane. On 91, I think it was like 322. Mm-hmm. But so I just run 91 in it, because stock pistons and all that.
Yeah. How convenient for you that you can run 91.
I know. That's what I did. You can go crazy.
You don't have an in-house account with Boostain.
Right. I don't. Yeah, and I don't have a 6-liter in my car either. but to answer your question, you know what I want to do? I want to put a sticky tire on it. I want to go see what I can do at Buttonwillow in my daily, and if I can go, somewhere in the 2 range,
you probably can. You're a fast driver. I can see that, and it's got some suspension and shit on it, right?
Yeah, it's got all of the tubular control arms, monoball, KWs that have been revalved, and then
the stuff you were doing like 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, nose lift. It's got all of that fun stuff, and then but it's
car has nose lift.
Yeah.
Like on a button nose lift?
Well, we did the KW nose lift. So it's you open the ashtray and you hit it. Because the other thing, when we built the car for the client originally, he hated the way the front of the car looked. So we swapped it out to a GT3 nose from the one. So it's kind of it's a hodgepodge Franken car.
Right.
It's not I wouldn't have done that, but what you did get is the bigger GT3 radiators, the condensers, and the big center radiator. So my son and I took it out to Palm Springs. It clocked 121 degrees F. I was going about 100 miles an hour down the freeway, and the thing's like 175.
Sure.
And then him and I took it up through the mountains just a little bit.
Yeah.
AC worked great. And I was just like, man, do I need anything more than this?
No.
It's great.
In fairness, the stock Cayman should have been okay at those temperatures too. Those cars are pretty.
Yeah, they're pretty stout.
I mean, it's not like you were doing a track day.
No.
Like, just you were driving. Like,
right.
Like even my Ferrari 328, like I picked it up yesterday from Donnie, who's out in Lancaster.
Right.
It was like 105.
Right.
It was hot, really hot. And this car, I stuck this thing allegedly 110 miles an hour. I cannot believe how great this car is from 90 to 110 miles an hour.
It's like
for a 1986.
Sweet spot.
So it's it's where it all just settles and just goes.
Yeah.
90 to 110. And this thing is at 185 degrees,
so
just
nice.
Humming.
At 105 outside?
105 outside, 205 oil temp.
Well, think about
just humming.
How efficient that is, because the thermal delta between what the outside temp is versus what the engine's producing and versus what the shed rate is, that's an efficient.
Yeah.
That's efficient, and that's how I think. I was like, when it's 120 degrees out and I'm sitting at 175. How you don't have much
the
of a
engine is not making that much heat compared
and it's
to what
efficiently
is
how
right.
So there's
that when that Ferrari engine is dialed in, it's shockingly good. How good that engine is for a 3.2 liter naturally aspirated engine, makes about 280 horsepower moving a lightweight car.
Which is, that's
the intakes aren't that big. You know, the air intakes are like this big, but it's got the vented deck in the back, and so it's, you know, kind of in and out. And you can just, you know, it's just so great at this high speed touring. Yeah. It's so nice.
That's awesome. That's
I still sweat the temps on my Spider, even though I know that
they have that weird.
I know that they have a real gauge that shows the real number, and if I'm on the highway doing 70 in 6th gear, the coolant temp is like 220.
Yeah, it goes up.
Right, but then I hit the canyon road and it drops to 180 like that.
Yeah.
It's so, like, I know it's doing the thing it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's supposed to maximize efficiency. Burn off a lot of the vapors in the oil and throughout the system. But yeah, isn't that
just makes me? It's so weird because my brain goes, that's not right, but it actually is. It's right. It's just that those people are smarter than me.
Yeah, but it's so kind of counterintuitive to what we've grown up around. Right. And more than that, every one of my customers like, oh, I'll change a tire on the car, and they'll be like, "You fucked my car up." Sorry, Bubba. You fucked my car up because, you know, my temperature. Now I get on the throttle, it goes down, but when I'm cruising, it goes up. I got to bring it back. I'm like, dude, we changed the window switch.
That means it works.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah. It's that's such an interesting thing about Porsches that they do that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some other cars out there that do that as well. And it's not as immediately obvious through the gauge cluster.
Right.
Yeah, either it's a dummy gauge or that particular temp is buried in a menu somewhere that you're not seeing.
And they'll just say, hey, this is the normalized temperature, and if we go code red, I'm going to tell you. But outside of that, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's funky.
That's like when we go to Pikes on race day, we just shut everything off. Like all the warnings. It's like, because what are you going to do? You know, pull over? No, I'm going to nuke this thing to the ground if something goes wrong. I'm going to go as hard as I can for as long as I can. So basically it's like gear position and some other little things. But
that's an interesting strategy.
Yeah.
The race is so short that you will not be able to learn and adjust.
Definitely not.
It's just like either it blows up or you get to the top.
That's when Raph was driving it. He's like, Betim, what am I looking for on the dash? I go, look up. Don't worry about the dash. He goes, well, what happens if something happens? I go, keep your foot in it until it can't go anymore.
Right.
You know, or if it's unsafe.
Right.
Because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to save something, or I'm going to repair. You can't repair it. It's next year.
Yeah. What are we saving it for?
Just nuke it, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So I haven't seen you since Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
The younger block got to drive the Hoonipig.
Right.
And it made it.
Yeah.
It made it up the top.
Yeah.
I saw the video. It's an emotional thing.
Right.
Not a real run, a tribute exhibition run or whatever. But it's nice that car got to do something.
Yeah, because the car hasn't done anything.
Right.
We needed that.
Yeah.
As a group, as a team, as the Block family, I think it was important. So we showed up to Colorado the week before, and we've already tested the car a lot. We've got the chassis down. The car is so much fun to drive. And I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time behind the wheel of that car. So we get to Colorado. I do 2 laps. I'm like, at Pueblo, I'm like, man, this is good. This is like.
What did you set the power at? I mean, it was a reduced power.
Reduced power. So when I went out there the first time, it was about 800 horse. And then, just off gate spring, and we started going. Come back in. I get out of the car. I'm like, well, I don't really need to drive this anymore. Let's call Leah and have her come down. Well, we see a little oil smoke. So I went back out there. We thought we tightened the fitting, and then went back out, and it was even worse. I'm like, oh man. So we had to take the bonnet off, look down in there, and there's a feed on the top of these GT3 blocks. There's a feed line that comes main oil pressure out of the middle of the block, and it feeds the nose of the crankshaft.
Okay.
And so they're center fed, like early F1 shit, center fed oiling. So all of the rod bearings are center fed, mains are block fed, and the factory fitting had the tiniest hairline crack in it that I couldn't see. I had to have one of the young guys like Bobby. I was like, Bobby, is there something wrong with it? We tighten it, it gets worse. We back it off, it seals a little bit. There must be some crack or a burr. So he looks at it, he's like, oh yeah, there's a hairline crack in it. Well, this fitting is like swedged onto some billet crazy fitting with O-rings and something. So it's not like
easy to get at.
So I'm down.
Is that a take the engine out of the car situation?
No, it's not. But what it is a waste of a day, because I'm running around to hydraulic stores trying to figure out how we can take a hydraulic fitting from like a tractor, swedge it down to the small piece, and get the aluminum part back in the block. And it's not like a settled science where it's like, oh, you just go to a Porsche dealer and get this fitting for a GT3. No, because the GT3R block has a completely different fitting than the street car.
Oh, okay.
But now it's
you can't call Porsche Motorsport and say overnight this.
You can,
but you don't have enough time.
I didn't want to waste a full day. So then we got it done, fixed it, put it back in. Then Leah drives it all the next day, and we did a photo shoot. She's having on black. Here, let me tell you about Leah real quick. She, I met her. She's quiet, very respectful, nice, wonderful person. The first time I spent any real time with her. So I'm talking to her. I'm like, hey, after we get the car running right, I'm like, so get in it. Just go click through some gears, half throttle or whatever. Go, just go find your way around the track and come back. It goes down the straightaway, wide open, all the way through 6th gear. Here, rev limiter in 6th. Back off, get into turn 1, and then just ripping through the inside.
Who does that sound like?
Yeah.
Quiet, respectful, doesn't say much, gets in the car first time, flat foot through 6th gear.
And so, like,
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, exactly. I immediately get goosebumps when I hear that car going and her in it. And she does one time by.
Well, she's a good driver. She's done well in rally.
Awesome.
She's done, she's made a pretty good showing for her first full season in rally.
Yeah. And so but I don't know her. Right?
Yeah.
And this car's weird.
And
a
also,
weird car.
it's a kid.
Yeah, it's a kid.
It's a kid.
And last time Ken got out of the car, he was like, man, this is a lot. This is a lot. And he was just like, this is going to take me some time to process.
Well, didn't you also have it tuned for 500 more horsepower than that?
Yeah.
It's a pretty big difference between 800 and 1,300.
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
There's a big difference. 800 is a lot, but I've driven 800 and it's manageable.
Right.
You start to get into the deep 4 digits and you go, okay, I'm going to reevaluate my life decisions up to this point.
Well, and because that car, so we started turning it up. Well, let me back up. Anyway, so she gets in, and I open the door. I'm like, how was it? She goes, oh my God, this thing is amazing. She goes, it just turns in so hard, and when you think you're like, oh, I might slide out, you just turn in more, the thing goes, it doesn't matter where you are, you can get on throttle anywhere. And I was like, oh, what a relief.
Yeah.
Folks, got to take a quick break from the action for Groove Life. They are a sponsor of today's podcast, and they are reinventing everyday carry. Look, it's 2023. Are you still using the same wallet, EDC, from 2003? Now is time to update that wallet game with Groove Life. The Groove Wallet is a sleek, low-profile wallet engineered for everyday use. With one swipe of the thumb, it perfectly fans out up to 6 cards for easy access to find everything you need. Let them know you've got 6 credit cards. Probably not. You probably got a driver's license, maybe a health insurance card, maybe Costco membership. Maybe you've got 1 credit card and 5 things that just kind of look like credit cards. That works too. It's not like Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places where he's got 75 credit cards in his wallet. But with the durable, high-quality aluminum outer shell, the wallet is unlike any wallet I have seen before. It looks totally bomb-proof. It looks like something you'd see in a sci-fi movie, totally for the modern era. And whatever happens to your Groove Life gear, they are here to help. They've got a 94-year no BS warranty. 94 years. Who's going to outlive that warranty? I mean, the average lifespan of a man in America is like 72. You're going to pass it on to your grandkids. They're going to file the warranty on that. I hope it's no BS. You're going to have to pass that wallet and a receipt to your grandkids. They want to claim that warranty. They just launched the new attachment, the Groove Wallet Go. It's a low-profile companion to your wallet or your iPhone 12, 13, or 14. It uses micro-suction technology. It adds 3 cards plus cash to the back of your phone. It's so slim you can fit it in your front pocket. You'll barely know it's there. I tried that one to put the things on the back of the phone. I like it. You don't always want to carry your wallet. Sometimes it's just license and $40, maybe a license and a credit card when you're going out. Leave the rest of your wallet at home. It's clutch. And Groove Life makes more than just wallets. They've got belts, rings, watch bands, AirPod cases, and more. They now provide for over 100 families. They started as just a side project, but it's an American company recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing companies in the USA. Bring your wallet into the 21st century. Head over to groovelife.com/tire for 20% off all Groove Life products. That's the best offer you'll find, but you've got to use my link, groovelife.com/tire, 20% off your order. One last time, that's groovelife.com/tire for 20% off your order. And now, back to the show.
Good.
She's used to like a Fiesta rally car.
I know, exactly.
It's a little different.
Yeah, and then so then we settle in, we turn the boost up a little bit, get it to about 1,000, and she's just having the time of her life. We do a photo shoot, end of day, bring the car back, and we park it. So the Hoonigans did a shot and did their thing, and then they all leave, and it's the end of the day. So I'm like, all right, fire this thing up. I'm gonna go put it in the trailer. Well, right when I fired it up, I heard this thing go, knock, 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 and then the thing is on 3 cylinders. I'm like, you gotta be joking me. What is that? So I put it in the trailer, and we're just sitting there trying to figure out what that was. So we pull over to the gas station in the truck. I put Sander in the back. I'm like, hey, pull the data. Make sure all the cams are spinning. Make sure we didn't lose a bank of injectors, that our DI pump's still going. He said, oh, you know what? The DI pressure dropped on bank 1 or bank 2. I'm like, oh, okay. We got spare pumps. And then I'm thinking, like, well, what drives that pump is the intake camshaft.
Okay.
So we get it back to the shop, and we're panicked, taking the bodywork off, because I need to. If we have big problems, I need to call. I have about an hour to call.
And how many? What day of Pikes Peak weekend is?
So this is Wednesday.
Okay, Wednesday.
Yeah, and
the run is Sunday.
The run is Sunday,
Okay.
but we have to have the car on the mountain on Friday.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, because we weren't able to run on Thursday because the organization just said, look, we can let you run on Friday as from mid up, right? So we're like, cool.
For practice.
But they wouldn't let her practice with everybody else, because what happens if the car broke or she went off and then she's not competing and then she stopped the time for everybody else. They had to close the course. So I completely understand. So we broke, which apparently is a problem. We broke 4 of these aluminum bolts that hold the cam actuator to the sprocket. So the actuator's spinning, but the sprocket isn't. So I called Jared. I go, hey, overnight me valves, overnight me intake and exhaust cam. I had a sprocket, overnight me all the cam timing tools, new hardware, everything. So
this seems like a lot of things.
Okay. And so anyways.
Like this thing's making a lot of power, but not that much.
Well, no.
Like what is it about that?
That wasn't a power thing. That was like Porsche, what I found out, and thank you, Porsche, the cam sprockets, there was an early version of it. And the early version, the sprocket itself had play between the bolt shank. So there's 4 bolts. And anybody who builds these later engines knows exactly what I'm talking about.
6 people on this listening to this.
Right. Yeah. So the sprocket, over time, because it's just a friction fit with the bolts, the tension of the bolts, which are aluminum, which blows my mind, it cocked over, and then the edge of the sprocket itself hits the bolt, creates a weak point, and shears the bolt.
Okay.
And then luckily, it wasn't at speed. It was just cranking the engine over, because the cam, it's 120 degree flat 6. There's a neutral spot where all valves are closed at one point, in one point of the cam, and it just so happened to break at that point. So we didn't bend any valves. Oh. So replace the cam.
Is that just pure luck?
Yeah.
Is that where the weakest point is, or was it just pure luck that it happened?
No, what I would assume is because as you're rolling the cam over, it goes dunk, dunk, and I had one dunk out of the 3, so I had a 1 in 3 chance that it would stop at that point.
Or like when you shut the car down, it doesn't wait until that point to turn off. It turns off just where it is.
Yeah, because then you have all 4 cams loaded, and you don't have that like weird oscillation of spring pressure on the backside of the lobe. But anyways, we got lucky. Replaced the cam thing. It got the thing running. Got it running because the parts showed up Friday morning. So sorry, this was Thursday. Parts showed up Friday morning.
They were shipped or driven from here?
They were shipped.
Shipped, okay.
Yeah. I almost put Dimitri on an airplane. I'm like, because then you can come tonight, we can work through the night. But once we found out the valves weren't bent, put it all together Friday morning, and then I told the guys, I'm like, hey, PPIR is open till 9 tonight. So at 7, we got the car loaded, hauled ass down to the track, and then we what was nice because we wanted to stress this thing out. We turned it all the way up and went banking, right? I burned 13.
Because they have an oval also, right?
Oval, then infield. So I went out for 4 laps. Sander looks at the data. He goes, you're looking good.
Okay.
I get out. I go, Leah, get in. Filled it up, 26 gallons of methanol. I go, burn it all. She went out lap after lap after lap after lap. Temperature's normalized. Everything's fine. About as hard as this thing can go. And she's 6th gear, boom, boom, down. And
what is the top speed of this thing in 6th gear?
142.
Oh, so it's geared short
real
as
short.
shit.
Yeah, so you have to get out of it on the banking. It's geared real short.
Yeah.
And then
are you tempted at all to re-gear it for half mile and see what happens?
Yeah, I have the whole gear stack here.
Really?
Yeah.
You think it would do like 220, 230 in the half?
In the half?
Yeah.
If I could, 100%. It's like 2,600 pounds, and it doesn't have a traction problem.
Right. And
so,
but the drags,
I'll just
it's set up for downforce.
You take the front,
take the canards and the wing off.
Take the canards and the front diffuser. You can trim that out to neutral. Take the rear wing off.
You think it would get shady at that speed?
No, because the underbody aero. I mean, it's still you can't draw it enough. I mean, the underbody makes quite a bit of downforce, and kind of you just gave me a lesson on the Spider. You said the underbody is made for more stability rather than downforce.
Yes, for the Spider RS.
That the underbody of that would keep the thing in the straight line.
Yeah. That could be.
Yeah,
the one good time.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so anyway, she's maxed out, full tank of methanol on the banking.
We're happy.
Good to go.
We're happy. So Saturday, reset, go get the pits ready. Sunday, it's race, and she did an amazing job. Sunday drive, told her like, look, because she's never driven the car in the bottom section ever. Yeah. And she's just been in a rental car through there. But we did test on Friday.
You can't win today, but you can fucking lose.
Yeah, so. And I actually, Lucy, her mom said, Betim, would you mind just like telling her, because she's not gonna listen to mom.
Right.
So I was like, look, and she just laughed at me. But
you got it. It's the speech from the Rusty Wall, or not the Rusty Walls, the Rowdy Burns speech from Days of Thunder. Like, you bend this bitch, I'll end you.
I'll end you. You bend it, I'll end you. Yeah. No, but I just said Sunday drive, just cruise. But I said, but have fun. Yeah. Because the car, we turned it back down to about 900 horsepower.
Yeah.
And that's at altitude.
Right.
And you could. She was short shifting in areas. We looked at the data quite a bit afterwards, and she just did a great job.
Does that car run right if you short shift it?
Yeah,
it does.
It's fine.
So you can drive it at partial throttle and shift it 5,500, and it's all right.
Yeah. It's. I mean, you probably 7. You probably have to shift it. Like short shifting is like 7 because it goes to like 93.
Oh yeah.
But no, it's good. It's we needed that as a group. We needed her to go up because it was like 18 months of brain damage. Can you imagine? So just what I went through personally is nothing compared to what obviously the family went through, but build a car for a guy. We failed. The engine failed. He passed away. Yeah. We get this car right.
Yeah.
And then
now what do you do?
And then then the car breaks again by something completely weird.
Yeah.
And then so it's like 18 months of just like holding your breath, and then she made it to the top.
And there was a discussion for a while about someone else racing the car for real.
Right.
Which obviously didn't happen.
Good. No, I'm glad Leah did it. I think that's the move. That's the person who should have been in that car. And she had the time of her life. She had such a good time.
Do you think in the future she might race that car for real?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Who owns that car? Wheel Pros?
Wheel Pros owns that car. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of up to them in Mobil 1.
Yeah.
But I think if it was my pocketbook and I would groom her to do it. I'd say, all right, we got a test schedule. We're gonna go once a month. Yeah. You're gonna get in this thing. We're gonna and sign.
What does it cost to shut the mountain down for a morning? Because like people are doing it.
Right.
It's like a thing you can do.
Yeah.
Like Lambo did it for their dumb SUV record.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything to anybody.
I can appreciate people going out and doing it, but there's something to me about race day and forcing your hand.
Of course.
And having one chance at it.
Yeah, of course. But like absolutely, I don't think those records should count.
No, it's a cool time to flash, like a Nürburgring time.
Yeah.
But but whatever. But
it's the funny thing about it compared to a Nürburgring time is, it's It's almost impossible to compare. It's not like everybody's going to rent Pikes Peak and do it. Right. B, most people don't really know what it means. Like the Nürburgring is now at a place where so many production cars have been run.
It's like the set standard.
We know that if you go under 8 minutes, you're flying.
Right.
We know if you go under 7, it's practically unfathomably fast.
Right.
But like we as enthusiasts, we don't know yet. Oh, you went 942? Well, right. What does that mean?
Yeah, like what have we compared that to? No, and you're right. And
it's not like production cars are regularly getting run up the mountain.
No, and there is no base to go off of. And the other problem with that, I mean, the wind can blow at night, and the next day you're 30 seconds off because there's sand on the road.
Right.
And so you get to cherry pick the day, you get to cherry pick the conditions and all that when you're renting.
Yeah.
And then you can try it. And I blew those corners. Let me turn back around.
Right.
Whereas race day is just, it's not so much you against your competition. It's you against the time that you run, meaning the time of day.
Right.
And the conditions of the hill. And then if you get lucky, then you get good conditions. Then you have to go. Then you have to start your job.
Yeah.
But outside of that,
even at the Nürburgring. Like
it could be raining on half.
Yeah, I mean, Nürburgring's $50,000 an hour
to rent.
Yeah, $50,000, $50,000 an hour, and so you might get, once you're rented it, you're set up, you might get 2 or 3 laps in that hour.
Well, because you have to set up.
And if maybe you got to stop and check your tire, and it takes you as long to make those adjustments as it does to do a whole other lap. It's not like you rent it for an hour and okay, the car runs, let's factor in 10 minutes a lap. So even then, it's like 6 laps. So if you rent Pikes Peak for 5 or 6 hours and it's $25,000 for the morning, which I'm making up.
Yeah.
You probably get 5 hours. Well, at a 10 to 12 minute run, and then maybe 15 minutes back down, you can get quite a lot more runs.
Yeah, and most of the time you're not going all the way up. You're going to go to like Glen Cove and come back and say, okay, I got that nailed, and then and then we'll come. Yeah, you're right. There is a fixed fee, but keep in mind it is unless you rent it from the. So there's 2 ways you can rent that mountain. One of which is as you would typically do from, I think 2 a.m. till 8:30 a.m. and then you'll have from 5:30 to 8:30 to run.
Right.
Because but then you can also do where you're renting the entire day.
Right.
And I don't know what that costs, but I do know that is about $45,000.
For the whole day.
No, for the early part of the day with medical, with timing staff.
Right.
And corner workers.
Right.
So.
Oh, you need to have corner workers?
It's a good idea because you lose communication.
Sure.
If a driver goes off, then he's like, oh, where's my sat phone?
Right.
Whoever.
Yeah, no, I just don't. It maybe one day, a Pikes Peak time will mean something to regular car enthusiasts.
I think it's going to be a long time.
But it doesn't yet.
Until OEMs are going there on a regular basis, and you get a library of times, and then you say, oh, because like Randy Pope's at Willow, we kind of know what he does at Willow. We know what he does at Laguna in certain cars, and I use that as how slow I am as a driver because I'll take like a GT2.
Yeah, you need a big bank of data.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Nürburgring, and not just the Nürburgring itself, but specifically the Nürburgring Wikipedia page that lists all those times is a great reference. It goes back 10 or 15 years or more, and so many European magazines. Before the manufacturers were doing it themselves, it was like Sport Auto and Auto Build, and the German tuner magazines were doing that stuff 5-6 years before the manufacturers were releasing their own time. Yeah. It was only when YouTube and Gran Turismo made it a thing where it became a bragging time.
Yeah, and it became kind of like this is what our car. You come out with a new car and it's kind of like, well, what does that thing do at Nürburgring? And then you're like, oh wow, because you do have that bank of runs.
It's also very easy to cheat at.
Is it really?
Of course it is. If you've got a turbocharged car and you go in and you say you've run this time, well, prove you weren't running 15 psi extra boost.
I know.
Prove you weren't running a race gas tune. You know what I mean?
Let me.
There's no sanctioning body.
So not to call out Manthey or anything like that, but they don't ever touch the engine because they're owned by Porsche.
Yeah.
But they're going out there. You're not going to run, some race fuel in this thing.
Look, I don't know. I'm not saying that anyone is. I'm just saying that if you wanted to, who's checking? Who's going to stop you?
Well, but then you also look at manufacturers that come out here and they really want to throw a time down. They're aligning those cars and they're setting them up.
Sure.
Yeah, but within the OEM spec.
Yeah.
But it's not like came off not picking it up from the dealership and running over there and say, hey, Randy, here are the keys. Go for it. He's like, well, we got some work to do.
Sure. But even and just. Yes, it is easy to cheat at, but it's still a better benchmark, I think, especially if you go to the early 2000s when it's those magazines running press cars.
Yeah.
Like Horst von Sauma running
so awesome.
Carrera GTs and LFAs, just off the rack cars
Right.
versus the manufacturer's prepped car.
Right.
But like the alternative is, if you don't want to do a racetrack, I respect when they run Laguna or when they run VIR, because even though there's the bank of data is smaller, I can go to a track day and I can run Laguna.
Absolutely relatable.
And I can go, well, Randy did a 28 in the Senna and I did a 34 in a GT2 and here's what the differential is. But like Lambo on Pikes Peak, and they go, the Urus Performante has set the production SUV record up Pikes Peak. Well, what does that mean?
Also, it's like, we're not going to go to Pikes Peak.
Right.
And we're not going to go run our car up there and be like, well, there's no traffic right now.
Right, yeah.
All right, Donnie, start the clock.
Cannonball this bitch.
Yeah, let's do it.
The most egregious one by far is Subaru's Isle of Man car record.
Oh, God.
And they go, we've set the four-wheeled record at they're literally the only car to ever run.
I didn't even know we could drive a four-wheel car on this.
It's not possible. It's like, great. Congratulations, Mr. Higgins. You have set a record that no one's ever attempted before.
Or probably won't.
Or can do since.
Yeah.
Because you're a title sponsor of the Isle of Man.
Right.
They're the only people letting you run.
Yeah, they between qualifying sessions, all right, the road's closed, it's good, go. Oh, man.
Yeah, imagine Porsche shows up and just like sneaks a car on. Yeah. Comes out with the YouTube video
it's
later.
So out of there.
And people are just like, what the fuck are they doing?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Like when people started, when Alex Roy did his Cannonball record, and then a bunch of other people started doing Cannonball records, Alex was like, I know what I'm going to do. Yeah. I'm going to set a whole bunch of records no one's ever tried.
Right.
And then and he's like, I'm going to set the minivan record from Seattle to Key West. Like, I'm going to set, and he started doing it. He was going cross country. He set the three-wheeled vehicle cross country record in a Morgan three-wheeler, which, by the way, does anything sound worse than 52 hours in a three-wheeler?
No, nothing.
And he started the EV Cannonball and just, stuff like that.
So he's just having fun.
Yeah, well, he's not a manufacturer trying to sell cars. He's just a guy being silly.
Yeah, enjoying himself. Like, I need something to do. This sounds like, and I really like going cross country.
Yeah, making up a game and playing it, I'm totally fine with. But when it's the benchmark that you're using by which to sell cars, it's a little silly.
It's very silly. Yeah, because it's unrelatable.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely.
I set a record that you can't possibly attempt.
Yeah.
So.
You know how many times I've been up and down those? I think I set the record for how many times anybody's been up and down that staircase.
Sure.
Beat me.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah. Nope, sorry, I don't like your shoes. You're not going to do it. You're never going to sell another set of New Balances again.
Right. In the last few months, has there been anything new, incredible, innovative in the world of the Porsche aftermarket that everyone simply must know about?
Not tremendously. From this camp, not really. We've dialed back a little bit on chasing the next, whatever it is next, because the market's changed tremendously. And I don't remember if you and I spoke about that a lot, but the 991, 992 market isn't the 996, 997 market that I cut my teeth in. It is 992. If you look at our product offerings for a 992, you can count it on one hand. It's like an exhaust, but not messing with the cats. It's a brake setup, it's a safety setup, and some suspension tuning. But we're leaving anything that has a button on it. We're leaving it, right?
Yeah. And is that because of people are? First off, the cars from the factory are so fast.
Bingo. That's.
Are people finally realizing the cars are faster than them?
I think that harsh truth is come true, and now if somebody says, "Hey, I've got a bucket of money and I've got a 992 GT3. What should I spend it on? I'm like, well, tweak it a little bit, but take that bucket of money and go do track days and get an instructor, you know? And that's, to me, go drive it and enjoy it. And, you know, we can tweak it for you a little bit. We're not doing the huge projects anymore on these later cars. Sure, we're still doing like a lot of fun stuff in the air-cooled world and the 996, 997 world. But back in the 996 turbo world, for 20, 30 grand, you can knock 12 seconds off your wheel of springs time. Yeah. You know, like now, for that money, you're, oh, cool, I got another second and a half.
Right.
Which you would make more time, and I hate to say this,
getting an instructor.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go drive it.
Sure.
And get used to it and hone yourself.
Yeah.
Because the cars are so damn good. So our market has changed, but we still have fun. We're still doing a lot in the engine world. We're leaning on technology pretty heavily. We're using generative design and AI to tweak and modify some of our earlier designs, exhaust manifolds, intake manifolds.
How does AI come into that?
AI that's just a buzzword, but generative design is a little bit more like a machine learning. AI is not really, but AI helps you get through iterations of a component. So generative design, I don't have anything on me, but just to talk about it a little bit. Let's say you have a stressed member. Let's call it a brake pedal, right? Uh-huh. Pick up points here. You have from here. You have your master cylinder, and so you're compressing it, and you got your pedal here, and you want to make this as strong and light as possible.
Okay.
So we run it. We establish the load paths, right? We establish the envelope in which we're doing it, and then generative design will take that, and it actually peels the material away virtually until you get something that almost looks organic. It's like this bone-looking, very organic shape. And then what we use AI for is iterations of that to maximize, okay, well, this load path is a bad thing. So it'll go through the thousands that it spits out of iterations of that component and give you, okay, well, this rib right here, you should make that one hollow.
Right.
And then this one should be solid, and this, you should have a tiny web right here. And it turns out looking very, very organic.
What software is doing that?
We're using everything in Fusion 360.
Huh. Interesting.
It's an Autodesk company, and they're a partner of ours. And then we've also just partnered with 3D Systems. We went, last week we were there in Denver touring their facility, and they had one room with 37 3D printers that they also produce, printing just titanium.
Yeah, you can for a long time you could 3D print prototype stuff, but then you'd have to make it the finished part the old-fashioned way. Right. Can you 3D print
end use
product yet?
Absolutely. So the exhaust manifold and intake manifold on the Hoonipigasus are 3D printed end use products. So the exhaust is Inconel, and we use generative design to minimize pressure drops and create equalization across all cylinders. And then when we monitor it and outfit it with instruments, we like, well, it worked. You know, so it's early in stages.
Is that cost prohibitive for anyone that's not Mobile One building a race car?
Not tremendously, because we're 3D printing the exhaust manifolds on all of our turbo builds for consumers. Our intake manifolds are 3D printed for all of the air-cooled 4.1s that we're doing. And that's end-use 3D printed alloy. And we're looking at things more from a additive manufacturing and I use manufacturing loosely, so low volume. But so instead of subtractive, you've got to start with a 400-pound brick to make an intake manifold, or a 200-pound brick. Well, if you design it right and do it right and design this thing around the printing envelope and how it nests in, it's not cost prohibitive, but it's some brain damage because you have to change the way you think about designing and building something now.
How long does it take to 3D print an intake manifold once you hit play?
It depends on the size, but if you took a table that's, for argument's sake, 15 by 15 by 15, right? Yeah. And that's its print envelope. It's about 10 hours to get through that Z-axis, so it's a layer. Right. And it doesn't matter to a point. It doesn't matter if that entire thing has parts built in or just one single part, especially on the 4 laser machines where they simultaneously can print a layer. I'm going to get into this stuff more because I'm so excited about this stuff, especially after last week. But we're going to start building some cars where some of the suspension components are printed and used products.
Cool.
So rigidity up, strength up, weight down.
Well, you've got the zingers that are doing that.
Right.
And I haven't really seen the car perform. I know it drives. I haven't seen...
I only saw it at Quail last year, and I was kind of geeking out on how they incorporated the nodes, and it looked like they went a little over just to flex the fact that things are 3D printed. But there's a lot of generative design there. One of the coolest things I saw was the knuckle, the upright, with a caliper incorporated.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that on their display stand?
Yeah.
And that's, to me, a good utilization case for additive manufacturing.
Right, because you couldn't make that part otherwise.
It'd be tough.
Yeah.
But you're reducing bolted joints, you're reducing weight, increasing rigidity, and making a homogeneous piece.
Right.
That, to me, is why 3D printers should be there. Not printing, I mean, I hate to say, but not really printing our intake manifold, because you can cut that out of metal. But where it's...
But it's less wasteful, right?
It is, tremendously.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we have a lot of questions from the Patreon, and because we are limited slightly by battery power of our audio recorder, I don't want to die. I want to get through a bunch of these before we run out of juice here. So thanks to our patrons. If you want to get in on the action, of course, patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast. Get an ad-free experience and ask questions of our guests. Okay. All the pizza in my belly. Good username.
I like it.
Says, since I'm getting my oil changed, is oil analysis a must for stock motors that see lots of track time? How can an average enthusiast interpret the results, and what can be done to maximize engine life? Stock motor on track a lot. Do we need to analyze the oil, and what can we learn from it?
I think it's a good idea if you want to keep the health of that engine. The Blackstone, we always use them. It's just like Nürburgring. There's a huge library of parts per million and they'll tell you if this is outside of the norm, inside of the norm. And a lot of times what they'll tell you is like premature wear somewhere, or if you're tracking the car a lot and the car's running really hot, if you're in the high 200s, 250 and above, the way you can help with longevity is after you look at a bank of year analysis, maybe you have to change the oil a little bit sooner, between track days, because you're really working that oil a lot more, and you're not going to go the traditional 3,000 miles. You're going to go 1,000, or you're changing the viscosities. But those are the really, without getting in there and changing bearings, it is a good way to look to see if you're graphing if you're trending in a direction, and you can actually make changes early on to help level that curve out.
And Blackstone, when they give you a report, they write a little summary in there that you don't need to be a super engineer to interpret. Right. They pretty much tell you what the numbers mean. So you don't, you could always send them to an expert and go, I got this chart, what does it mean? But if it says, there's metal in here and there's not supposed to be, then it is written in mostly plain English.
Yeah, no, and they do a good job of interpreting all that.
Lucas says, do you think a time will come when the ubiquity of Porsche, particularly the 911, in the enthusiast world will result in a backlash against it? Will the sheer number of 911s in existence combined with a decline in combustion car enthusiasm one day drive their values into the toilet?
I mean, it's a good question. I don't really have the answer to that. I don't know. It has gotten wild. And I've seen some, just in the time that BBI's been alive, we've seen, you could buy an RS America back then for 22 grand, and I can't do that anymore. But I don't know when that's going to cap off. But the enthusiasm for the internal combustion engine, I think the person looking for a 911 is going to be enthusiastic about an internal combustion engine. If you're not, don't buy a Porsche or buy a Taycan.
Yeah, and I also, I think we talk about collector values of cars a lot, and for a lot of people a car is some kind of investment. Maybe they're not going to make money, but they don't want to lose money in this car. I also think the quote sheer number of 911s in existence has outsized coverage.
Yes.
In the media,
right,
in shows like mine, in places like this. If you go to
many small towns and smaller cities, if you go to Minneapolis or Lexington, Kentucky, or Detroit, or Reno, whatever, mid-sized American cities, it's not like 911s are like all over the place.
Right.
You might see one a day.
Right.
Those are still pretty exotic cars in most places.
Yeah.
So I don't see a backlash. I mean, what would the backlash be? It's not like people are going to wake up one day and decide these are not good cars.
Yeah, they get canceled.
Now, there could be, the 911.
Sorry, the 911's canceled.
Did you know there were Nazis involved?
That's it.
Wait till they find out.
I gotta shut my business down.
The connection between.
I told somebody that the other day.
They don't like that, do they?
Oh man, I was like, all right, you're not the type of person I'm allowed to kind of lightly say shit like this to. Sorry. But anyways, the other part of that is I think maybe some of that question's predicated on the fact that people are paying stupid money over.
Right.
That's butter in a hot pan.
Right.
Whatever you're doing with that, just burn it, right?
Yeah, money over is different from long-term value.
And those same people who pay money over are, but Tim, can I get a deal? I'm like, what? You just paid $200 over for your car. You're gonna bang down the small business?
Yeah.
Cool.
Dude, I got people who haggle me for $50 a month car storage, who buy a car so they could get an allocation for the next car. And I go, bro, I do not have the sympathy for you right now. You
so
just bought a
hard to
hold car.
Yes. Yeah, you bought a hold car that you're going to lose a lot of money
You bought
on.
a hold car to get the car you want. Like, you're not going to rake me over the coals.
Maybe that's kind of where my mind goes to that question.
Right.
So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people are going to wake up one day and go, oh my God, what were we doing? These are terrible cars.
Right.
But I also think that, and oh, by the way, once a car goes out of production, that could be a 964, that could be a 997, that could be a 992 GT3. Once there are a fixed number of them,
Right.
the values are unlikely to go to the toilet.
Correct.
Unlikely. It's possible, but it's not likely.
And let's just touch on the most important part about it. I don't care what you do, a 911 is amazing to drive.
Yeah.
A Porsche is amazing to drive. So.
And most 911s won't beat the stock market in an investment.
No.
They might beat inflation if you go right, but they're not going to beat the stock market.
not gonna beat the average.
So if you want an actual investment, a car is a bad one.
Yeah.
Unless you bought a 250 GTO in 1967.
Right. Then you're doing okay.
Then you're doing okay.
Yeah.
28.3, never forget. I hope that's not a white nationalist thing. What do you want to see in the 992.2? What issues need to be fixed?
God.
For me, the only thing I'd like to see in a 911 will not be fixed in a 992.2. I think it's too big. I wish it got smaller. It probably won't happen.
I wish it got smaller too, but it won't happen. What I do see in the 992.2, we're going to see hybrids, I believe. In the 911,
we will see hybrids.
Will we?
Yep.
Shit. And then the other part is
not all of them.
You know what else they need to do?
It'll probably be a Turbo SE hybrid.
I think they need to work on their clutch in the driving the clutch in the Touring was a little.
Do you stall it?
Yeah.
I stalled it a few times.
Yeah, I did, and then it was just they nailed it. I think in the 991.2.
Yeah.
I think it was great. And then they went a little too like, hey, now you have a clutch type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
They lightened the flywheel too much.
And they didn't compensate.
And it doesn't,
Yeah.
So my hope with the ST, which I'm very excited for, because it has an even lighter flywheel, is that I actually hope it has some kind of either electric anti-stall or something that will help me not stall the car.
I mean, they did that in the Carrera GT. I thought that was great. So I think they need to reintroduce that a little bit more.
Yeah. Sean Finney says, if someone wanted to get into fixing and maintaining or modifying their car, what make or model would you recommend they start with? Hondas or Mustangs?
Man, both are great. Man, I'm a Mustang guy, right? So I'd go Mustang, but the Hondas are such a well-served aftermarket, and they're easy to work on, and there's so much support out there. But Hondas or Mustangs, 240s, it doesn't matter really. Just don't do something that's like over, like has a big heavy or a small aftermarket. Something with a big aftermarket is the way to go.
Right. Miguel says, we discussed the 911 ST already, we did last show, but you didn't mention its similarities to the 911R. I'm pretty sure I did, although it might have been on Spike's show. To me, it seems like this will be another 911R situation where the limited edition version gets flipped like crazy, but then Porsche notices and undercuts it by making a less exclusive but similar version. Will the 911 ST? I think Miguel is neglecting the timing.
Yeah.
Porsche took away the manual gearbox.
Yeah.
Gave it back with the 911R, which was flipped like crazy,
right.
and then undercut it with the GT3 Touring.
Right.
In this case, the GT3 Touring already exists.
Right, so it's a flip time.
So will it get flipped like crazy? Yes, but the undercut car is already here.
Yeah.
So,
which I think was a better move.
For Porsche,
yeah,
for Porsche for sure. 911 ST is going to be awesome, and yes, it'll get flipped. But it will probably be rad to drive, and it will be similar to the 911R. Having said that, my friend who I had lunch with yesterday owns a 911R, and he goes, "What do you think?" And I go, "Keep your 911R. I think if you've already got an R, keep that."
Right. I've only been able to drive 2 of them, and I love it. This is a good car.
Mm-hmm. Also says you obviously love cars so much, but it's also what you do for work.
Yeah.
How did you come to terms with the fact that your hobby became your career?
Fuck, that's a great question.
It says, did it ruin the hobby?
So for a time, it did. That's a great question. There's 2 things that I've learned and my big takeaways from doing this, chasing my hobby and trying to make money. One of which is, there's a quote out there that says, "You'll never have to work a day in your life if you do what you love." That's fucking bullshit.
That's horseshit.
The hardest dollar ever earned is one that you're chasing, that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Because you have a different mindset in it. You're gonna do whatever you can to make it, because you're not chasing the dollar. You're chasing a living or building a career. And
people assume that because you enjoy your job that it's okay for you to not make a lot of money.
Let me be honest. I don't enjoy my job. I enjoy 10% of my job. That's working on the cars and everything. What I don't enjoy is HR. Angry customers, blah, 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 a wiring issue, a blown engine. There's a lot of those things that but that 10% makes it worth it. So I don't know. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, working on cars and riding BMX bikes and downhill skiing were the only things I was ever good at. So.
Right. Like, I enjoy probably a little higher percentage. I enjoy 20% of the job. I enjoy the driving of the new car.
Right.
And I enjoy sitting down and talking to my friends. And this podcast being an excuse to do that.
Right.
Whereas I'm otherwise so busy, I don't have time to just sit here at a table with you.
When have we ever done this?
In a work day,
Yeah.
And do that. But yeah, the ad sales, the unpaid travel, the editing of the videos, that's
being away from family.
That's real work, man.
Yeah.
That's real work. And so my car hobbies take a back seat.
Right.
My own cars are the last cars I drive. And people find this very hard to believe, but if I'm at work, if I'm not working, I don't want to go to your car event.
No. And it's nothing against
personal.
But it's nothing against it. But you know what I want to do? I want to barbecue. I want to do real life stuff that involve cars. But
I want to drive my car somewhere with my wife that, other than us taking the car there, has nothing to do with the car.
Car isn't center anymore. And just to be clear, I'm not complaining. I'm very, very lucky for what I've been able to do. But there's more to life than being singularly focused on one thing.
Right.
But
Look, there are ways to make a living that are miserable from A to B. From the morning you wake up until the morning you get home, your life sucks, but you have to do it to pay the bills.
Right.
And I don't think either of us have that, and so to that end, we are lucky.
We're very lucky.
But there are other different challenges that come from centering your whole life around a business that is also your hobby.
Right.
Bad Gardener says, I always wondered if hyper-rich people live like the hyper-rich in movies. Do you think any of you guys' rich friends have the phone number of a person to get a militia? Do they own houses inside of mountains, underwater access to bat caves? Do you know any people that are comic book rich? I mean, you probably have a couple customers here and there that are comic book rich.
I do, but the ones who are comic book rich, and this is very against anything, they're to me the most normal.
Sometimes, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, I don't surround myself with too many people outside of hey, transactional. This is the car thing. Let's go to the track or whatever.
Yeah.
But the people who I have spent time with, I've chose to because they seem like decent people, and they are decent people.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of whack jobs out there that like, there's whack jobs in every.
Sure.
I just don't spend. I don't know.
I don't know anyone who owns a submarine or a doomsday bunker, as far as I know.
I know one person with a doomsday bunker.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. No, the very rich people I know spend their money in pretty ordinary ways.
Yeah.
Cars, multiple homes, private jets, maybe yachts. You know,
it's just a scaled up, unrelatable deal. Like
it's unrelatable, but for the most part, not that original.
Right.
You know, it's very rare that I meet someone who's that rich and they've done something with their money where I go, oh wow, yeah.
Or like, oh wow, that's weird. Like harvesting camel's blood for some something, you know? Like,
oh, I definitely know somebody with a blood boy. I know some blood boy fools for sure.
See, I think that's where this person was going.
For sure. Let's see. David Zumot says, now that Porsche has built a better / shorter geared Cayman Boxster PDK, do you think they will use that gearing for future non-RS Cayman Boxsters? Not really.
Are they going all electric for the Boxster?
Yeah, there's no more.
That's
there are
it.
no more. There's no more gas Boxsters. That's it.
Yeah, that was like.
We're done now.
Yeah.
RSs, we're done.
Yeah.
Tim A says, what are your opinions on first generation PDK from 997.2? Can you notice the difference between that and the brand new cars?
First off, I love those cars.
Yeah.
I love the PDK because it comes with the new M91 engine in there. The 997.2, I think, is a great car. It's reliable. I mean, the gearbox is a little lazy compared to the new stuff, but good car.
I think you can tell the difference between those cars and the current cars, but it's still, if you go drive one of those cars with PDK, it doesn't feel old.
Right.
You know, it still shifts fast enough and direct enough, and it's aged much better than what everyone else was doing in 2007.
100%. But I did see one thing that Zach just did. I forgot what car he's driving, but he's like, look at the delay. Click.
Amira.
Okay.
The new Amira.
So they do have a little bit of a delay, not like that.
Yeah.
Compared to the new cars, I think they sharpened up the time from shift to that.
Yeah.
But outside of that,
they're still really smooth and
really good. Yeah.
Michael says, any cars besides Porsches you want to work on if a benefactor was willing to bankroll it? There's an Ultima GTR in the shop right now.
There's an Ultima GTR. There's an Aston Martin.
Oh yeah, there's a McLaren over there.
Yeah, I don't want to ever do McLarens again.
You worked on the Radford.
Yeah, I worked on the Radford. You know, I'm always intrigued, but it's never in line with business. I always lose money when I venture outside of this.
Papa Gray says, I'm looking at 991.2 GT3 manuals. I currently own a Carrera T manual with all the driver's focus specs, modification to brakes, and a 500 horsepower tune. Bet that's fun.
It's a rad car.
Is it worth the investment to go from that to a GT3? Would cost 50 to 75 grand. As a street car, no.
I wouldn't do it as a street car.
The T modified like that might be a better street car.
It's one of my favorite cars to be as a street car.
Yeah.
But the GT3, there's nothing cooler than a 9,000 RPM NA engine. However, it's what are you going to use it for? And you got to look at like that scale. Are we 10% track, 90% street? If you're real with yourself, the T is the way to go.
Great mate says, do you think GT Porsches will ever become attainable to a non-repeat customer at a dealership? Are there any secrets that can help someone buy a GT car for a sticker? I missed the boat, and now I'm stuck searching for used cars. I mean, you can find a dealer group that sells a bunch of different cars and buy other cars from them. Like for instance, I work with Galpin a lot.
Yeah.
And I've bought Ford, I've bought Volvo, you know, I've bought a couple different, I bought 3 Fords and a Volvo from them. And if I wanted a Porsche, I could probably get one because it's the same dealer group.
Right.
Other than that,
I think that's the only way.
Yeah, you got to have a relationship.
Especially if you're talking like a new car or spec-ing something, that's tough. You have to have a relationship. Relationships cost money in that world. It sucks, but
I mean, or you eat the dick once, pay the over, and now you have the relationship.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way to do it. But these cars, they know how many people want, and they're smart enough to build one less than that.
Yes, I know. And they're also and then they kind of get that hook in you early.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And also, you know, Porsche did that thing with the 918. Remember when if you bought a 918 new, you got allocations for 10 years.
Right.
That was the deal.
Yeah.
And enough people did it and they hoovered up all of those cars. They took every allocation they could get. And then even once that program ended, they were hooked on allocation heroin.
Right.
The number of emails
so
I get from people.
So true.
I mean, I'm sure you hear from these people too. I got allocated this car, its sticker. I don't even think I want it, but if I don't take it, I won't get the next allocation.
Oh yeah, you're out.
It's like it's heroin. It's the heroin of being in the club, but there's a financial incentive to it because the demand is so high that you could take it, and if you don't like it, you can get 20, 30 grand more today.
Right.
It's crazy.
You don't even have to. The car doesn't even have to land. You could sell your allocation.
Right.
I think that's a little broken, but it's part of the gig, dude.
It's a shitty system.
Yeah, it is.
But like. It's the flip side of the same economy where for years we beat dealers up over prices and made them take money off the fucking table.
Right. Now they're like, it's our turn.
You could negotiate a Cayenne or a Panamera down 10, 15, 20K. My dad's 2017 Cayenne Turbo, someone ordered it. It was an ugly spec, black over chocolate with burlwood and the Tech Art, the sport design kit. It was heinous. Yeah. And he got 25K off to take that fucking thing off the lot.
When I bought my Cayenne diesel, it was the same way.
Yeah.
I went in there. It was actually the same thing, kind of like you. It was a Mercedes group, and I saw it there, and they wanted a big number for it. And I said, I'm a buyer at this. Oh, this thing ain't gonna be here for another week. Well, 2 weeks later, I'm like, it's still there. I'm
still
like,
there,
so yeah, but not anymore.
It's unfortunate that there aren't enough cars for everybody who wants one to get one at sticker, and dealerships are using that to their advantage, and that's the system we have, and it's a shitty system, but it is what it is.
True.
Nat Campo wants to get more power out of my 78 911 SC. What would be the best route to maintain a level of reliability? Want to keep it NA?
Good question. I have an SC also that I absolutely love. It depends on where you want to go, but if you can minimize what you do on the top end of that with that injection, I would do SSIs or a set of headers, an exhaust that you can tolerate. That typically wakes these things up, and then throw a set of cams at it. Yeah. That's really it. Some Carrera cams, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, anything more than that, you're taking the injection off and you're putting carbs on it. Or, you know, the rabbit hole goes deep, but that's very surface level.
Air-cooled horsepower is so expensive.
Is there anything more expensive?
I think we've done this math. Yeah. I think it is the most expensive horsepower that money can buy.
Gosh.
Because to go from a modified Carrera 3.2, which makes 300 crank, to a Gamroth, you know, it's like $150,000 to get
because what you're left with is a block.
Yeah.
You're left with the engine case. I mean, now you're doing bespoke casted heads and blah, blah, blah.
It's like $1,500 a horsepower.
I think it is. Something like crazy like that.
So crazy. This is a great question. Kurt May says, after driving the Spider RS, do you still feel like you could have written the review without driving it? Before I went to Germany, I said I could probably write this review without driving it.
Good question, yeah.
And so it's a good question to call me out and follow up on that. So there were some things I didn't know about the Spider RS that I was told when I got there. For instance, the spring rate is 50% softer than GT4 RS. Mm-hmm. The airbox is not in the quote in the cabin, it's underneath where the top goes. So if someone who was there had said the spring rates are softer and the airbox isn't in the cabin anymore, I could have probably written the remainder of the review with nobody noticing the difference.
Based on the fact that you've driven a
Based
GT4
on how
RS?
much I have 2,000 miles and 2 track days in a GT4 RS.
Yeah.
And so if you said softer for the street and the drone thing was gone at the low RPM drone, I could have written the rest of the review and nobody would have known the difference.
Wow.
Now, I'm still glad I went to Germany to experience it, because I also got to have a 2-hour proper go in a 959, which is an experience worth having.
I saw that.
And I think that I also think that the top is easier to deal with than original videos made it look like.
I'll admit, I just saw another video of somebody doing the top. I think it was on one of the deals, and I was like, man, that looks like a pain in the ass.
It is a pain in the ass, but it's not significantly more of a pain in the ass than my Spider's top.
Got it. Okay.
My Spider's top I can do up and down in about a minute.
Right.
This is about 1:30. It's not, in the real world, it's not massively different. The process is more annoying, but it's not as bad as like a Lambo Mercy where you're threading the rods through the cloth.
Yeah, and you're like setting up a tent.
Yeah. It's not that bad. It is bad. It's definitely annoying if you go the full weatherproofing. So it's a 2-piece top.
Got it.
There's the bimini,
right,
which is open air in the back.
Yeah.
And then there's the weatherproofing piece that goes in there.
That you have to put in the
thing. The bimini is about 1:30. The weatherproofing piece is about another minute. So to wash the car, you got to put the weatherproofing piece in.
Right.
If you're just driving it and it starts raining, the bimini top part is okay. You know this dude?
I don't know these.
It looks like they're selling Bibles over here.
I think they are selling Bibles.
Okay, hang on. David Hawk says, let's see. Do you want to hint at any upcoming projects?
We're starting to work on some pretty neat air-cooled projects. We're gonna be at Rensport with Mobile One, kind of launching a project we're doing. We'll talk about that more later. We're probably gonna go to Pikes Peak next year with an air-cooled car, which will be fun. And you know what I really want to do? I keep talking to Kong about this, but I want to revive King Kong.
Sitting over there.
Yeah, I want to have one whack at it.
Do you own that car?
No, him and I are partnered in it. It's technically his car, but we've partnered in it, and it's just been here forever. So.
Okay. Crisp Ono says, I saw Gunther Works is doing an E30, which I figured was a matter of time. Is there a market for a resto-modded E9, meaning a CSI or CSL? First off, I am excited for the Gunther Works E30.
God,
I think if anybody can do that right, it'll be them.
I would have thought, like, just like timing like the R and the Touring, I would have thought that would have been not Porsche yet, but the BMW world yet.
Sure.
You know?
That is that the Ultima? What is that?
I don't know what that is.
Sounds like fucking hot cams running over there.
Sounds big.
V8. See, the thing about E9s are a couple things. One is they're gorgeous.
Yep.
But they also made them for a pretty narrow window of time.
Right.
And they are insanely expensive to buy and to service and to repair. I had a client at the shop who did a mild restoration on one, and the bill I saw for little things was horrifying, even by Porsche, Ferrari, and Lamborghini standards. I think that people who are willing to spend money on that level, the Singer Gunther level, I think they're a little more nostalgic for 80s than 70s.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think they'd probably do a better job with an M6 from a shark nose M6 than they would a CSI or CSL.
Right.
You know, I'm very excited for the E30 M3 Gunther. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Resto Mod world. I like it.
Let's see, 2 more, and hopefully the battery lasts. I think it will. David says, you did a lot of work, meaning Betim did a lot of work on my old Fox body. If I had given you full creative control over the build, what would you have done with it given the same budget? Fucking same car. That car was perfect.
Oh, I love that car. Does he still own it?
No, it just sold.
Oh,
it just sold on Bring a Trailer for $36,000 or $37,000.
That car was so much fun to drive.
Yeah, it was cool.
I wouldn't have changed the thing.
Different motor. I mean, unlimited budget, he says.
Oh, unlimited budget.
Full creative control. Oh, with the same budget. Never mind.
No.
With the same budget.
I think it was great.
Choices were correct. You'd need another $25,000 to $30,000. You need a Voodoo engine and a Tremec gearbox.
There you
and
go.
then it was good to go.
Yeah.
Last question. Levi says, when building a car, especially a rear engine car like a 911 or Beetle, how do you determine the stagger of the tire? Do you determine it by weight distribution? I'm at 2,000 pounds and 40/60 weight distribution.
How much tire can fit? Like, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You know, really, like 911s, it's all, to me, I always try to put as much front tire under them as possible, because with chassis setup, you can really get the car to be. I mean, you look at an RSR, it's a 13-inch wide rear wheel and a 12.5 front. You know,
the 911 race cars do more at the front than they do at the rear.
Right, and the street cars, when you set the cars up the way you want them to, you're going to do the same thing. Naturally, you're going to do that. But it's a good. I mean, depends on what you're going to use the car for. Bigger isn't always better.
No, I mean, especially if you're driving on the highway. Like, you know, when I drove Gunther's first car, their red car, they had 305s at the front and 345s in the back.
Right.
And the car tramlined like crazy.
Yeah.
It was so darty on the highway. It was actually really tough to drive. Now it was insane on the track.
Of course.
Where the tarmac is perfect and that doesn't matter. But I said to the guys, like, hey, you know, this isn't fun, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a fundamental issue of the front geometry of a 993 and 964.
They ended up going with a 285 front, which found a happy medium where it wasn't so darty, and they still got the lap times they wanted out of the car.
Exactly. That's why bigger isn't always better. If you look at like the DLS, the Singer, it's got a 245 on the front and a 295 in the rear. It's not all the tire in the world, even though you have that opportunity. It's what works with the geometry of the suspension, scrub radius, and tram lining is a big thing. Because then you got to think about that percentage. Am I on track 90% of the time or 10%?
In a Beetle, I think tram lining is probably less of an issue because the widest tire you could probably fit is a 245 in the front, maybe not even.
Yeah, I'd just,
you know,
2,000-pound car, I'd just put small tires on it and slide that thing everywhere and have fun.
But in general, it's weight distribution first and then intended use second.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think most street cars, if you're moving towards a track focus, you usually want to add more front before you want to add more rear.
Correct.
Usually.
Yeah.
Because a lot of street cars are set up to understeer. Mustangs are set up with a factory stagger to make them relaxed on the highway. Anyone who does performance driving in a Mustang, the very first thing they do is square stance.
Square setup.
It's a
like
very
305s on all four corners.
Even pseudo factory setups like the Shelby or the RTR, the first thing they do is square stance.
Right.
And it doesn't really take that much away from how they drive on the road, but it adds a ton to how they handle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for doing my. We got people now. Business is happening.
Now people are showing
engines.
up.
People are showing up. All right. We'll let you get back to work.
Yeah.
My man. Thank you very much.
Always good.
I am off to Pebble Beach next week.
See you there.
By the time you hear this, I will be at the Quail. This is next week's show. I'll see you up there. Thank you, patrons, for all of your questions. We appreciate it. And of course, BBIAutosport.com, BBI Autosport on Instagram. If you're in Southern California and you've got a Porsche and want to make it go, stop, or turn better, this is where you go. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.